Hey everyone, welcome to Artist Decoded. I'm your host, Yoshino. I'm currently nestled within the mountains, reporting from a secluded cabin in Patagonia on the Argentinian side, and it's always been a dream of mine to come out here. I think I've fantasized about this for years, being able to be out here next to the mountains, seeing the snow on the top of the mountain. And it's interesting to have that dream fulfilled. But I'll be spending the next month here doing a few select remote interviews, but mostly working on a project that I'm currently immersed in, which I'm eager to share the details with you all soon. But for now, let's shift our focus to something equally exhilarating. It's with my great pleasure to introduce my guest for today, a man whose presence on the podcast is always enlightening and inspiring, my very good friend, Johan Van Mullem. This marks Johan's third appearance on the podcast. Johan is always a beacon of creativity and insight, and our conversations are always imbued with a sense of kindredness and a shared understanding of the world with its myriad intricacies and complexities. He also just concluded a huge solo museum exhibition at the Royal Museums of Fine Arts of Belgium. The title of the exhibit was called For Love's Snake. What a true accomplishment. I'm so happy for Johan to be able to exhibit his work in such a fine museum. I wish I could have been there in Belgium, but I hope some of the listeners on this podcast were able to go see the exhibit. Yeah, my hat's off to him. I'm very excited for him. Thanks for tuning in. Please go to our iTunes or Spotify page to leave us a quick review. It takes less than a couple of seconds, but it helps a podcast immensely to be able to reach a larger audience and for this podcast to hopefully resonate with listeners just like yourself. So here it is, my conversation with my very good friend, Johan Van Mullem. I hope you enjoy it. Well, thanks, Johan, for doing this. I really appreciate your friendship and the times that we've been able to have conversations over the years. And I feel like each conversation I get to know you a little bit better each time. And I feel like every conversation I have with you is building upon the last in a very organic way, you know?
Yes, I have the same feeling. I'm always looking forward to talk with you because there are always new things happening, but also we always discover new things, and there are so much things to talk about.
Yeah.
I guess one day you will come, and then we'll have a very long conversation.
Yeah. We could have a marathon conversation.
Yeah. But
I would love to. I'm sorry, what?
No, yeah, I would like, yeah. I think we have, it's always very pleasant when you have people, you have the feeling you really share something, that's important. It's not just about talking about things, it's really sharing ideas but even more than that. It's just when you have the feeling we are somewhere on the same place, so we can talk about this place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the way that I would put that or phrase it is like having a shared energy with someone. And I think, and I'm curious what you think about this, but specifically at this point in my life, I'm really trying to hone in on who I energetically share a commonality with. I mean, what is your take on that in terms of I've heard you talk about that in videos before about energies and being aware of that, but I'm curious what you think about that idea.
I think that's especially for those maybe 2 last years, quite a lot of things happened in the world.
Yeah.
worthwhile. So not only on my side, but I really now I'm more and more convinced that yes, it's all about energy. So that means that we are all having our own energy, and you have to be very respectful about that. That meaning that I think you have to be aware what kind of energy you have and try to live with it and bring it to the world and share it with the people. Meaning that I'm just convinced now, because quite a lot of things happen, that if you are on your correct or right own way, then everything else is going to happen. Not about only about dreams or things. No, it's just you have to be connected with your own energy. And the more you are connected with your own energy, you will meet people who are connected to a kind of same energy. And this is very interesting because you can try to be, how do you say, if you try to correspond to what you think people are expecting you to be, you will not reach anything and you are going to get lost. I think it's just things are much easier than what you can try to understand or be. So it's just about energy. Yes, just try to be as happy as possible with what you are. So it sounds quite
Yeah.
easy, but I think I really believe in it because, as I said, a lot of things happen, good things happen, and even things I never thought it would happen. So it's just like a gift of somewhere that says, yeah, you are on the right way, so you can continue to do it this way.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree with you. And, that has been a lesson in terms of like honing into one's own energy. That idea has been something that I personally have been trying to really be conscious of, and honing in and
Yeah.
building the muscle of intuition. And I
Mm-hmm.
think from a very practical sense, and I'm curious what you think about this, but from a very, very practical sense, like, without speaking of energy necessarily, but just being able to trust your gut on situations. And I'm curious what made you believe in this idea of like honing into yourself and working on yourself and working and understanding your own energy.
Well, I think there is one question, and I think it's the kind of origin of the question is something I never, I can still not understand where the idea of what you just said about this being what you are, energy, etc. It's like when you have the feeling things exist, the way the work you have to do or we have to do is to arrive to be what you feel that you are. It's strange. It's not, I think it's not the way of if I do everything I think we have to do, I learn, people tell me to do, etc. I'll be happy and I will be able to achieve things. No, I think you know what you want to be inside. It's like a voice inside that says, look, the world is like this, things are like that. So just try to reach that and be that. So you can of course when you have to act and to do things, of course you have to be how do you say, drifted by an energy that tells it's this way. But at the origin of this thought, there is something existing, and we already talk about that. It's something much bigger or stronger than what we are alone or everybody. It's something that belongs to, I want to say, to universe. It maybe sound very big, but there is the same for my idea. I wanted to be an artist. I never I didn't arrive suddenly when I was older or younger to say, now what could I do? I will try this. No, it was something inside that told me you are this. So I had the feeling about that. It was not even the question. It's just a kind of reality that says this is what you are or what you should be. So the way was trying to be able to be that. So
Yeah.
it takes years. It takes a lot of work on yourself, on family, etc., education. But I think it's this way things are going. It's just try to be what you feel you are. So you are the only one who knows what you want to be and what you appreciate, what you like, what you want to be. And you know when you do something wrong or when you do something well.
Hmm.
That's what I feel.
Totally. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you on all fronts of what you just said. I think there's so much information coming at us from all different angles from, I mean, the internet, social media,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that uh I mean even books in a way, I mean, I'm kind of making a huge generalization on books, because there's so many different types of books, right?
Yeah.
But I think that instinctually we probably know what is best for us, but because there's so much information out there, it um, muddies the waters of your own conscious reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's almost like being able, like honing into one's intuition is almost like developing a filter,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and being able to use that filter. And then, so like, whenever you run into situations that make you feel uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
you already know specifically what you should do. But but sometimes I think that we try to use our logical side of our brain
Yes.
to convince us to do something contradictory to what we know we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, before we started this conversation, we were talking about like allowing things to happen as opposed to, well, at least from what I gathered from what you said, it's like allowing things to unfold, not trying to control the outcome of things. And I think, that is like a perfect example of the mixture of like the show that you have right now,
Mm-hmm.
this museum show.
Yeah.
I think that is like a perfect sort of manifestation of like you working on yourself, you honing into your intuition, and you allowing things to happen organically. I mean, I know it's a lot more nuanced than that, but I'm curious, like from your perspective, like how this all came together.
Yeah. Yes, it's really, 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 really is very. I don't want to say strange because it's kind of my work. It are science I believed in. When things happen, you say, "Wow!" So what I was thinking finally is maybe right because it happens. So for the story of the museum, this is really, really, really a strange story because it started with the COVID. As I said, everybody had to be to remain inside. You could not go outside. So of course, as a human being, you start asking yourself, what is the outside? I was not aware about it because I was living it. So and I didn't have to ask this question. So it started with that, with the COVID. So I was working in the garden and I suddenly discovered nature, which was, I wasn't really aware about it. Of course, I knew things. I was sometimes in the garden, but not on that, the same way. So I discovered nature just to say that my work changed. Then I had to find, I wanted to find a new studio to make big works. And one day I went to Brussels, to the city, and to have some materials to buy some paintings and brushes. And then suddenly I said, well, why don't you ask? And so I said, ask to who? Well, I knew some people 10, 12 years ago, and I still had the mail. I wrote 2 mails. And at the evening, I went back home with a key of the most beautiful studio I've ever had. So that means that it was just the right moment to ask. And that was fantastic. Then I made quite big works in this studio for 2.5 years. And everybody was telling me, but Johan, these are big, big works. These are museum works. Nobody is going to do anything with it. And so when the owner told me I had to leave the studio the week after, the curator came and said, I want to show your works in the museum. So that means that, in French we say all the planets got on the same line. And so that means that you just have because I never thought about a museum show. I mean, I just wanted to paint what I felt. So I found a studio, and then came the museum. I didn't do anything except being where I wanted to be and do the works I wanted to do, because this was what I really felt. So I think this is the way it happens. I think if you are on if you do the best you can for yourself, things will arrive. I mean, maybe for people who do music, people who do, I don't know, business, people who do anything else. I think it's as you said, the difficulty is to be, you have to think a little bit about, of course, how do you proceed, how do you live, etc. But you don't have on the main important questions. I don't think there is really something to ask about. It just do it. Just do what you feel. You said, I think you are going to travel in the coming days. So if you do that, it's because you feel something and you want to be somewhere, and maybe there is something to happen. Voila, I think this is the way. Yeah, I really believe, because this is something I was really, I will not say I was sure about it, but now I have, I can prove it, that it's possible, that it can happen. So it really makes me think not totally different, but now as I'm more and more aware about that, I will, once the show will be finished, I think I will need a little bit time because I still not aware about what happened. So, and I don't really want to be totally aware, but I think it will change quite a lot of things. Because with the show we can talk about it later, but the show itself is amazing, because it's done in the museum, and I'm inside of the old masters collection. So I have the feeling for the first time I found my house and my family. So it's very strange, but one day, normally you have a family, normally you have a place, and my way of doing it, I didn't really had the feeling I had the right place where I wanted to be, and family it's something more than parents or brothers and friends. It's something more than that, and I really have the feeling. So now I have the feeling I can finally start my life. So,
interesting.
It's the end of something, but it's more. It's the beginning of something new. That's interesting.
So I want to ask, how do you say that in French? I think you said something like all the planets will align, or what would you say?
Yeah, that's correct. All the planets are on the same line, When you have all the planets, suddenly everything's come together, because you need quite a lot of things to come together, and a lot of things that you don't control. It has to come from outside, and suddenly everything comes on the perfect moment. Everything comes together, and I don't know if you have to say it's a miracle, but it looks like a miracle.
But how do you say that in French?
Well, no, it's about the miracle. That's also something because I have now with the show, I have quite a lot of new interrogation and questions because it doesn't mean that when you are what you want to be that you don't ask questions anymore. You still have new questions. But
Uh-huh.
I think the idea of miracle is something that happens that you didn't even think about. I mean, if you want something to happen extremely hardly and you want absolutely to happen, if it happens, it won't be a miracle. It's something that you were expecting. Miracle is something that you didn't expect.
Mhm.
And that arrives. So it's totally amazing that when it happens, because then you say, "Well, what did I do? I didn't do nothing, and still it happens." So, voila,
Hmm.
this is what I think today about
Yeah.
miracles.
Uh-huh. No, but Johan, I mean, how like specifically like all the planets will align. How
Yeah,
do you say that? How do you say that in French?
toutes les planètes sont alignées. Les planètes s'alignent.
Hmm, I like that.
S'aligner means get on the
Aligné.
on the line. You know,
S'aligner? Did I say that right?
yeah, s'aligner is all
S'aligner.
on the same line.
I like that. I
When the
like that.
soldiers at the army get on a row, we say ils se sont alignés, les soldats. Voilà. So it's on the same line. Voilà.
The same line. I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm asking specifically that because it's interesting how so I'm learning Spanish and kind of learning Portuguese right now, and it's interesting how there are certain words in different cultural contexts. You know, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, like in Spanish, you would say um, to touch a guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
so
yeah.
you and then so like the tangibility of the touch, like I
Yeah.
feel like assumes some sort of connection with the instrument. And
Mm-hmm.
in English, you would say to play guitar.
Play.
And I
Yeah.
always find that as I'm learning new languages, that each language has its own sort of like
Yeah.
cultural understanding. And so that's
Yeah.
why I asked how
Yes.
you say
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
all the
yeah.
planets
Yeah.
align. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's very on the I don't know if it's culture, but you are right. It's a very different. Yeah, it can sound completely different if you say to touch or to play. It's not. Even if you touch, you can play, but
Yeah.
it's, uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's
It's
yeah,
it's just a different understanding
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah, right.
within a language.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so I'm curious, going back to this. I mean, it's kind of, I was going to say going back to this idea of miracles,
Yeah.
but it's kind of hard to, I would say it would be hard to describe a miracle. But I guess, like, from your standpoint, this museum show, I'm sure, because I mean, it's essentially like a retrospective on the past maybe 5 or 6 years of your work. Is that right?
50 years.
The past 50 years.
Yes, I say that
Uh
because
huh.
the feeling is when you arrive there,
Uh
and
huh.
as I started wanting to be an artist when I was five, it's the way from five until now. It's not just the 5 last years. I just said, wow, now I would like to have a museum show. No, it's not about having a museum show. It's just about being recognized as what you are. But it
So,
starts,
oh, I'm sorry, what?
no, it starts by yourself. So, because I think between five and almost 64, uh, there is a lot of work on yourself and just try to believe in yourself. And when you arrive now in the show, you can say, oh, I believe in myself, but the others maybe also, because otherwise I wouldn't be there. And that gives
Totally.
sense to all the life. That's what I wanted to say. It gives sense to everything you did since the beginning.
Mhm. That's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's such a cosmic confirmation from the
Mm.
universe
Yeah.
of uh the importance of your artwork. I mean, having some
Yep.
sort of like institutional importance, I think, is like something that a lot of artists strive for. And so
Mhm.
when you're talking about the idea of, you finally feel you're at home and with
Mhm.
family, is that
Yep.
because you are exhibited among all of the old masters, or what did you mean by that in terms of like coming home and now you feel like you're part of the
I,
family?
I have been, until now, I have been moving 35 times in my life, meaning that, and I've done quite a lot of jobs. I have always been painting, but not all the time professionally. This is what I'm doing for 15 years now. But before, I had to do quite a lot of jobs. Though the idea was I was trying to find the place where I wanted to be and trying to be what I wanted to be. So that means that a lot of times I had some interviews, people asking, "Oh, do you have connections with, are there some artists that have influenced you, or do you have a connection with special artists?" And I always said, no, I don't really have, but I have the feeling that if you take someone like Rembrandt, it's my uncle. And I always say it's like my family. I don't know him very well. I cannot talk about him a long time, but I have the feeling he belongs to what I can consider my family, not only in the artistically family, but in general. Just it's a kind of relation. And and now suddenly the museum proposes me to show, and it's a project, we can talk about it, but it's a project of the museum asking two things to the Belgium, Brussels artists. It's one, to get in connection with the old masters collection. And secondly, to propose the show, who is called Remedies, as a remedies for the society today. So that means that suddenly, voila, I'm with my uncles and in the museum, and the place itself is it's quite amazing. When you put your artwork in the museum, it's like suddenly it really doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the time, and suddenly you have the feeling that you belong to, yeah, not to history, but that your own story is just a small story among all the other stories of all the other artists, but also of all the other people coming and look at the show. So this is the feeling of about finding a house. It's finding finally the place where I am totally with myself.
Yeah.
I'm I'm and of course it's not about to be recognized as an artist. It's more about being the feeling I have that everything I've done until now was the reason or was the way to do it, to arrive to a point where you have the confirmation that you exist, not
Yeah.
only as an artist, you exist as a human being. And
Mm.
this is a very strange, well, for me, it's a strange feeling, but it's a true feeling. And I think it's really the first time I have this feeling. It's not about hiding anymore, because now, of course, all the people can see the work, all the people can come, and I have a lot of talks, I have a lot of meetings, but suddenly you have the feeling you exist. And this is for me, it's a new feeling,
Mhm.
because I was more about
Yeah.
not hiding totally myself, but more alone in my studio working and not that much interested in meeting people. And now I have the fact that have this show. I'm so happy to meet the people now. But maybe now I am ready because they told me you exist. You see
Mhm.
what I mean?
I
So
understand what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a strange, it's just a very nice feeling, of course, but it would take me still a little bit time to understand and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a very deeply spiritual sort of, I want to say like coming of consciousness.
Hmm.
It's like a catharsis or a
Yes.
finding of oneself.
Yeah.
And and yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I think it's difficult to say, A, B, C, D,
Yeah,
like, all these,
rational.
this
Yeah,
thing added up to this thing, and,
yes.
and trying to,
Hmm.
create a sequence out of that, but I
Yeah.
think like, I don't know, it's, I mean, I can imagine it's incredibly cathartic for you to be able to display your work um, in the museum, and to know that basically all your decisions along the way have amounted to like this show. It's like a
Hmm.
representation of um, it's a representation of like all of your artistic and just life endeavors like coalescing into like
Yes.
one moment, right?
Yes. Yes. I think because we spoke about I said I talked about the notion of miracle. So for me in my culture, it's more miracle is linked to religion, but then also with everything I told until now. So if you have the show or everything that happened, so it's a kind of I would say it's a kind of rebirth. That means that my old life, meaning until I was before the show and now after the show, I think it's a kind of rebirth. And once again, it's a kind of a religious notion. And I think it's really religion is, well, I don't know if we have to talk about religion because it's quite difficult to talk about that, but it's just telling it's about symbols, and I can try to understand now much better what it is talking about when they say miracle, rebirth, etc. I think it's just about the fact that you have to be aware that you have your own life, but your life belongs to something much bigger, and we have been talking about that for few years now. And I think it comes back always to the same thing. But when you have suddenly when you have an image or you have a fact or something that happens that make it reality, then suddenly you have both what you were dreaming and reality, and you need both. And this is quite amazing. So you have to be in your life, and then suddenly rebirth means that okay, you arrived at one point when you have maybe understood or you told about full conscious that you are alive, so now start your life. And it's really a new step. And it's not, for me, the most important, of course, it's nice. I meet a lot of people. I'm going every weekend at the museum, and I have extraordinary relations with people who are coming. So this is really great. But I'm not there for talk about my work. I'm there with people, and I have experience where people enter the show and suddenly they start crying.
Yeah,
So
I remember you were telling me
meaning,
that, yeah,
yeah, yeah, but
before.
I have it once again now. Every weekend, yeah, I have people crying.
Now, why
But
do you? Uh-huh.
no, it's just to say it's not because of me. It's because of what happens. And so the most important, it's not me. It's not Johan Van Mullem at the museum. No, it's art. It's something which made things alive. And this is also kind of small miracles for people to suddenly discover that they are alive.
Interesting. So when you have conversations with people, and maybe a couple of conversations um,
Mhm.
stand out to you, but when you've had conversations with people like after they're crying,
Mhm.
have you um, what do they say?
In fact, the thing that happens is that they are so, how do you say, their emotions are so strong that they don't understand how it's possible that they react like this. So, meaning, I don't control what I am. There is something that makes me feel this way. So, and they are just surprised by their own emotions. So then they start looking at the work, and they are not looking to, they are looking to an image without seeing what the image is really, just because they just try to understand and have a kind of conversation that starts with the work, just about themselves. And so they enter the work and they start traveling, trying to understand. And so they have memories about what they've seen and why, etc., etc. So the work itself, I won't say it's not important anymore. Of course, it's important because they can focus on it, trying to understand themselves. And this is amazing because sometimes the emotion is so strong because it's a lot about colors. It's about light. So they get emotions about the light they receive. And suddenly we always talk about this energy. They say, it's amazing the energy I've just got just by having these colors and this energy. It makes me cry. And it makes crying younger people, 20s, who are 20 years old, people who are 75, 80 years old, everybody. I mean, it's not just focused on one category of people. It's just about emotions of life. And that's fantastic. And I think as I did the work on, and we also had a lot of conversations about that, my way of doing my paintings is something unconscious. So I'm not trying to give a message about something or my explanation about the things. No, it's just feeling and emotion and energy. So I think it's interesting because once again, I have the feeling it's correct because the people feel it. So it means that my work, that I always say, it's a kind of, global conscious of the world, of the people where we come from. Well, the people, it remembers them something on an emotional way without knowing where it comes from. But we don't know where we come from.
And I think, I mean, that's really interesting because like artwork in general, if it's effective, and effective meaning like pull someone in emotionally, or it draws out an emotion in someone, or someone just reacts to it in such a way, like it's really hard to describe where that may come from, like where that because whenever you or I or anyone looks at a piece of artwork, it could be very effective for me or you or someone else. But I believe that we're always projecting sort of our past experiences onto pieces, which creates a dialogue between the artist and yourself, which I think is the power of art. I mean, you can extrapolate this among like films, like maybe you and I will watch a film together and have completely different responses based on our life experiences, right? And so I find that to be the power of art. And I find that to be like very interesting when people can look at a painting and maybe it might be abstract and they don't necessarily know why they feel that way, but they feel that way. And and it's interesting for me to hear you and your process, because from what I know, like your process is not premeditated, right? Like you don't go in and and outline everything, and
No. Yeah.
It's all essentially a spontaneous
Yes.
act, right?
Yes. Yeah, completely. And I
But
think
has it always been that way? Spontaneity
yes.
for you?
Yes, it has always been like that. I mean, since I started drawing and painting and sculptures, yes, it's all about the same way of doing. And I agree with the fact that everybody, of course, is free to feel something or to understand something different, etc. I think the difference here and which is quite amazing in this show, is that the people are surprised. It's the surprise which is very big, meaning that most of the people who are coming to the show don't know that there is a show, not a contemporary show in this museum. I mean, of course, I have people coming to see my work, but I think most of the people don't know. They come to the museum, which is a big museum because it are 5 museums in the same building.
Yeah.
So people are coming to see the old masters, and then suddenly they discover my show in the old masters. So they are surprised. First, they are surprised to see some contemporary art, and secondly, they are so much surprised by what they see. And it's you have also sculptures, and sculptures, this area I've called it serendipity. So it's more about a good surprise. It's supposed to be a good surprise. You meet something you were totally unexpected, and this is really what happens. So it's not about something I can understand and I can see what I want, and this is already something rational, intellectual. Your brain is working. When the people enter the show, there is no place for the brain. It's just heart, feeling. And the people are, of course, not everybody, but a lot of people are amazed. And they don't even, a lot of people come to me and just say, "You are the artist?" Say, "Yeah, okay, thank you." And I don't want to talk. It's too strong. I don't want to talk. I just want to say thank you. And they remain half an hour, just looking. And you see that they have a new experience about something. So it's the surprise and something about something new for them, because I think the society is quite, well, everybody is busy. And so there is not much time for, older people don't take time that they should take for themselves and try to understand what the human being is. But there they are so amazed. And you have people who are artists, you have people who are working in financial, you have people working in politics, you have people, you have everybody. It belongs to everyone. So, but it's really the fact that it's a surprise by light and energy, which seems to be in the paintings.
Yeah. And so have you ever had such a strong response collectively from a show that you've had before? Or do you think that because of how long the show is up, you get to experience people's emotions towards your work more than, let's say, like a gallery show that's up for like 3 weeks or a month, and you just see people at the opening? Does that make sense?
Of course, that's exactly the approach. I think the big difference is that my show is in a museum. That changes everything. I mean, I don't have the response of the gallerist. This is, of course, a lot of we can discuss about that a long time, but you don't receive, because you don't spend I don't spend time in the galleries during the shows. I just go for the opening, and sometimes maybe if I'm living close to it, I can go, but I don't. And so when you ask the gallerist, what do people say? They mostly answer about I sold or I didn't sell. And then you say, yeah, but I would like to know something more than that. And then, sorry, I don't have time, but they like it. Okay, bye-bye. I know, I understand. I mean, gallery have a lot to do. Here, there is no economics. The place itself, the museum, gives a dimension when the people enter, only in the big hall in the forum on the ground floor. You are just in another world. So people who are there are traveling, walking, and it's a totally different experience, because here in Belgium, I don't know in New York, but I think also in New York, and I have seen it, everyone doesn't go to the galleries in New York or in Belgium. It's only people who want to see something about or who know something about art. They are mostly afraid to enter. They are not always well received, and they are mostly they think they don't have the money to buy it. So here,
It's more intimidating almost
yeah,
to
voilà.
go into
So
like
in a
a
museum, you
gallery.
forget all that, and you just have people who come to the museum because they love art. So, and of course, I'm there on the weekends because each weekend I'm there. I have so beautiful experience with people that I go back, and I don't have to be there. I mean, it's not asked by the museum. I just do it for fun, but more not for fun, because fun would say, well, I have a good time, it's nice. No, it's much more than that. It's you discover people, you can share a lot of things about art and other things, and so it's quite amazing. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like from your standpoint, like prior to doing this museum show, I would assume from your standpoint that it would be more pleasing to have studio visits where you can have dialogues with people directly as opposed to just having a gallery opening and knowing that your pieces are going to be sold, you know, to essentially, you know, be on someone's mantle or, you know, be put on the wall or something like that. Although both are necessary, right? The
Yes,
dialogue
exactly.
about the work, but also the selling of the work, you know, so that you
Yes.
can make a living, of course.
Yes. Yeah, I think the problem is, and this is, you can have hours of discussion about that, but I think the art world changed completely for those 3 last years. Even it started a little bit before, but I think with COVID especially, which was accelerating the changes, I think everything has changed, meaning that for the gallery, it's quite hard. For the artists also, for the museums, for the press, it's difficult for everybody. That means that everybody has to find a new way of doing. And that means that today you cannot do without a gallery, you cannot do without events, you cannot do without museums, you cannot do without curators, you cannot do without collectors, etc. So you need everything. But it's the way of doing that changes. So I'm very respectful for the galleries that do a good job. Of course, one can discuss about what is a good gallery. That's also another subject, but still, it's voilà. I think it's the way of communicate between people that change. So everybody can get in contact with everybody. Everybody knows everything about everybody. And so it becomes, it's quite difficult. I think for me, the studio is a place where I'm creating and I don't want to be really disturbed. So it's not an open space. It's not open to public. I think it has to be something more discreet for me.
Yeah.
The ideal place to have an exhibition is a museum, but everybody cannot show his work in a museum.
Sure.
So voila. And I think it's more and more today. You see that there are quite a lot of pop-up places, events. Yeah, I don't know what's the good or the best solution. I don't know if there is a solution, but it's quite difficult. And of course, as you said, you should be able to sell some pieces if you want to continue, of course.
Yeah.
So,
do
but
do, do you happen to do any studio visits with people, or do you just
yes, of course I do it, but I consider that the studio is my home, so I'm not letting everybody enter anytime in my house. You see what I mean? So,
no, I understand.
Voila, it has to be, but it's something very natural. I mean, it's about feelings. There are some people you want to show them the work. There are people who are interested, others not. So it's a kind of, and the fact is, I moved quite a lot in houses, but also studios. So for the moment, I don't have any studio. So I have a small well, I have a place where I can work home, but for the moment I don't have a studio. So if there is a visit, it would be at home. So
I see.
so
Mm. And so let's talk more about what people can expect in the museum show. So I know that there's an array of your sculptures and also some of your landscape pieces, but can you describe it to for us and the audience?
yes. So the idea of the museum was, as I said, there are two directions. The first one is asking the artist to get in relation, in dialogue with the old masters, and therefore I had the chance to have two rooms, in fact, two big rooms. So with the curator, we decided to change to split it in two parts. The first one with sculptures, which are all white. It's clay, but recovered with a special epoxy resina. And then with my drawings, which are big drawings. And this is the black and white world. And it makes a better link with the old masters, because when you see the figures and the way of drawing, it has a relation with something religious, old environments, etc. So people enter this place, and then you have the second one called, for the second part of the show, which is the remedies, is trying to propose to people a solution. The fact is that I wanted to say to people, we are all the same. We have all sometimes black IDs and some luminous IDs, and the world can be sometimes black and white and very hard, but it's also full of joy. So you have the two worlds just separated by opening a door, and so the people can go from one to the other. And this is voila. So when the people, the two rooms are in the middle of it's just close to the Ribbons collection, all the old masters collections. So when the people enter, they don't really know what's happening. They don't really understand which old master this is, because there is something different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a young old master, and yeah, and then they try. Yeah, it's a first slow, soft way of introducing the work, and they really, well, they can understand it. And then you have the second one, when they enter the room of the painting, then they are in another world of, yeah, it are landscapes, but also done on the same way with my faces I was doing before. It's done on an unconscious way, as I said. So knowing that I don't know what I'm going to paint when I start. So, but with the COVID, the things that change is the fact, as I said, I was working in my garden. I started be connected to nature, and I started painting branches, tree, green, blue, skies, etc. And then I wanted to make them big, and then I made big landscapes. And it's more about the faces I was making, and it's still in the sculptures and the drawings. This is more introspective work. It's more about myself going this way. And the paintings is the other way of doing it. It's going to look to the outside world. And this is something completely new.
Yeah. And speaking of gardening, so I've heard a lot of people really being into gardening, and it can be, peaceful and meditative. And I'm curious what you learned about yourself while in the process of learning the craft of gardening.
Well, I think it's quite amazing, because the final idea is that for the nature, and we all talk about it quite a lot, nature is suffering also, and we make it suffer because we have sometimes strange behaviors, and we don't make it easy for nature, but they always find a solution. They always find a way of bringing something new, or even if they disappear a little bit, they don't need quite a lot of things to rebirth, maybe. and to come back and to grow and to find other trees and other things. Voila. So it's really, yes, it can be hard, but there is always a solution. And maybe the solution belongs also to time. It needs time, but time can go very fast. If you let the nature doing everything by itself, it will recover the city in few decades. It will be back to nature. So I think it's interesting to see. Then you have the details of the different branches, leaves, the way how it is made, how it is constructed. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, when you start looking really to the details, the way how it is put together and how it works, it's really amazing and very interesting because it's something about life. It's working with light, it's working with water, it's working with earth, it's working with the different elements, with the wind, brings the little seeds everywhere. So it's quite interesting when you start looking at it. And of course, it was a privilege, even if it's hard to say. I know it was very hard for a lot of people, but I had the chance to have this garden. And so the sky was blue because there were no des avions.
What?
In the sky, you have, when you travel, you take planes.
Oh, plane. Oh.
Plane.
Did you say avion?
Avion.
Oh, okay.
Avion is a plane. So the sky was totally blue, and the grass was totally green. But it was nice weather. It was beautiful. It was really amazing. So and it made me start painting again, but because I didn't paint for more than a year before that. I was drawing, but I didn't paint for more than a year. And with the COVID, with the nature, working in the garden, I started working home in my studio. Yeah, and I started doing something completely new.
Have you always been a person that, like, would you describe yourself as someone that really appreciates the details, like being able to like look at all of the details on a branch or a leaf and be able to appreciate all of those little subtleties? Would you describe yourself as that kind of person?
No.
Really?
No. It's more about. Sorry, Yoshi.
No. I like honesty.
Of course. I did a lot of work, so I saw, but I never start studying things. You see what I mean? I have I have a lot of difficulties to be patient and to go really to the details. Now, that means that, of course, I have my own way of doing a procedure where I like that everything is precisely how I want it to be. So, but I'm more about a general appreciation about things, not going to the details. It's just about, if you say, for instance, you can see that the flower is beautiful. I would say I feel or I see and I have the impression I like it. It's beautiful. It's not a reason for me to go and look at all the details to see why could it be so beautiful. I'm just satisfied by the idea. Yeah. It's beautiful and that's enough. I don't want to know more.
Yeah. Well, let me give you an example. So what comes to mind when you were talking about spending time in the garden and like feeling and appreciating and nurturing these plants. So sometimes I'll take the time just to look at a bunch of ants and knowing where, and they go into this, their own little ecosystem and, and there's like, they have a whole like life. Right. And then I just think about that in terms of like us. And if you're in a plane, avion, if you're in a plane, you zoom out and you look down at people and their cars and it's like, well, you just have a much different perspective. So it's kind of this point of a metaphorical catharsis of
Yep.
understanding that, like, we are not that special.
Yes.
No, we, like, and I think, like, something that I'll just say this, something that I've observed in New York, being in New York, and is that um, people aren't very patient. And I think that's because time and money is associated with each other. But I think also on a deeper level, a lot of people are suffering
Yep.
in this sort of like capitalistic structure. And so I think, like, by I, you know, it's given me the conclusion that sometimes things are like, life is more enjoyable when it's more simplistic,
Mm.
when you can have like simple exchanges like us
Yeah.
talking, or
Yes.
just spending time with the family, or
Mhm.
certain things that I think like can be overlooked in a highly capitalistic society. But I'm curious
Mhm.
what your take of that is.
But you're totally right about the time. And you know what's amazing? That the first question, the first asked question and the number one of all this list of questions when people arrive is, how much time does it take you to make this artwork? And then you say, wow, it's amazing. They are talking about time, just as what you said. I think people translate time in money, and because time is money, and it's so much in their brain that they, when they write it, they, how much time does it take to make this artwork? And then I say 63 years. And then
Yeah,
voila, and then they
I
need
like that
2 3
response.
seconds to understand, and then suddenly, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because what does it mean? How much time? I needed every day, every second from my life to arrive there and to make it. So
Yeah.
it's not about just, it took me 2 hours, 2 days to make this. That has no sense. So what is the sense of time? It's what you said. Take your time, family, sports, culture, I don't know, travel, whatever you want. But there is no time. Why do you talk about time? It's just be where you want to be and do what you want to do at the moment where you do it. So that's why we say to the people, and I also say it now,
Mhm.
just live in the present, because it's the sum of everything you have done and it will bring you to the future. So voilà. First question is that, and then I'm very kind. I answer the right answer. I said 10 months, 2 months, a day, or, but it's strange. Huh? It's always the
Yeah.
same. Yeah, the notion about time, because I have been making, and there are some drawings in the show. There is one drawing which is 11 meters long.
Oh,
So it
wow.
took
Yeah,
me a long time to make it.
of
And of
course.
course, people are cannot imagine how much time you can spend on that, because they have never been drawing or doing things. They don't know. But still, it's so important for them to make the link with the time that it takes to make it. And well, I think what we are talking since the beginning is about this time to bring you where you want to be. So if I have this show, I luckily have this show at the museum. It
Yeah.
gives sense to all my life. It's not about just the 3 or the 2 last years. No, it's every. So time, notion of time is more about all your life. If you are where you are today, it's because, well, everything you have done before.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I like that. I also like this, and I'm curious what you think about this, but it's a very romantic notion. So bear with
I'm
me.
very romantic. You can do.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, we both are very romantic people, so
Yeah,
perhaps you might
yeah,
like this, but I've been thinking about the idea of an artist painting one painting for their entire life. And
yes,
for me, what that represents, just this idea of like being able to work on one piece. Well, first of all, you can uh compare it to like one's own life, right? And
Mhm.
essentially your life is your own perfect
Mhm.
masterpiece, your own painting,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
and within that painting can be multiple paintings, right? And sometimes you see paintings within paintings and that sort
Yeah.
of a thing. But I think the idea of having one painting that you work on your entire life to me symbolizes like this thing that this art form that exists outside of commerce
Mhm.
and outside of the necessity of needing to sell like small pieces or
Mhm.
individual pieces.
Mhm.
And there's just something romantic and pure about that. And I think that, sometimes with art or with anything really, it gets too diluted with like commerce and uh over intellectualizing things.
Mhm.
And it just seems, for me, it seems more pure. Do
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, but I'm
I,
curious what
I
you think about that.
yeah, I understand perfectly what you say, but what I would say is I also had this idea about making just one artwork all my life, and that would be the masterpiece of my life. But then suddenly, when you start thinking about that, you say, listen, every second is separated and still it is linked. That means that if you make one artwork and you make another one, you make another one, it's it's like every second you put together, it will be at the end your own life. You are, it's about
Yeah.
we are 80% of or 95% of emptiness. We are not, we are empty bodies. I mean, the cells have emptiness between each piece. So you could say, why are we not just one cell? No, I think it's the fact that we are billions of cells that makes it interesting. And
Yeah.
with the idea of what you told about the plane when you're higher and you look at the people
Yeah.
downstairs,
Mhm.
same thing with the museum. When you see, I suddenly realized that I was putting painters of the, I don't know, 14th century in one box, 16th century in one box, and
Yeah.
there is no box. There is one line, 1 second, 1 year, one decade, one. It's all the same. It's just one story, and we all belong to this one story. So there is only one artwork. We are living in one artwork. But
Mhm.
maybe in the cosmos, you have billions of those one stories. So I don't know how it works, but it's
I know what you
uh
mean.
I, I understand
Or I
perfectly.
think I think I know what you mean. I mean, I understand the spirit of the
Yeah,
conversation is what I'm trying to
yeah,
get
yeah,
at.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's more the idea about, I think, to be unique. When you say I make one piece and this will make me this, and it's kind of unique. And you
Let,
also say
Mhm.
we are not extraordinary people. We are all ordinary people. It's just society that makes people, some people more extraordinary than others. But it's bullshit, huh? It's we
I
are
think
all the same.
Yeah, I think, I think that idea of being unique and being extraordinary and being ordinary, I think is very complex because there are definitely people among us that carry some sort of something that we collectively would say, oh, that person is extraordinary. But
Mhm.
perhaps the conversation could be that person is the most tapped into themselves.
Mhm.
Like that person knows specifically what they want to contribute their time to, and they do that with their full force. I think like, I mean, and also just thinking about that notion of time,
Mhm.
like, someone may ask you, like, how long does it take to do that piece? You may say 100 hours, right? But, you know, I think it takes a lot of courage and trust and understanding for you to work on a piece for 100 hours instead of just look at Instagram for 100 hours or something. You know what I mean? Like, I think like it takes an understanding of purpose to really like hone into the thing that you want to do and the importance of your life. Does that make sense? Does that make any sense?
That makes sense, but there is one thing that I'm asking myself is
What is that?
if I can be what I want to be today, and I'm lucky man to be what I want to be and where I'm in, it's also thanks to everything that exists in the world. That means that if you put it on bad, this is good, this I don't know, etc. It's the total world where we live in that makes things possible. So I start to have another point of view about things, just saying, I don't know what makes sense, and I don't really know what is important because we don't
Yeah,
decide nothing. I mean,
I
you know,
understand. I
I
know.
had the idea when you're talking about time and cells and etc. If you consider our Earth as just one cell, if you see what's happening in the world, you can say maybe this cell is starting to be a cancer. Hmm? One cancer cell in cosmology and all the planets where it's maybe the first cancer, but maybe not. Maybe there is something going to happen and it will make it remedies for all the universe. I don't know. Things are so complicated and
Yeah.
so simple at the same time because we are nothing. We are,
Mhm.
I already repeat myself by telling we breathe without doing nothing, and the heart is just
Yeah.
working alone. So, what do we decide? Nothing. We just decide nothing, meaning the important things to be able to live. The rest is okay. I think that, you do this, and I do that. But I can do and think what I do, or just because the others say something else. It's because we can share, we can talk, we can discuss, and this make things possible. If you are alone in your own world, nothing is going to happen, and you will not be able to be aware that you are alive. So you need the others.
Mhm.
Now you cannot be loved by everybody. You don't need everybody, and that's also what we see in the society today. Let's go back to local. Yeah, I think this is the right dimension of
Do you
what we
mean,
are able to live with. We
yeah.
cannot live with Instagram or connected be with the world and not with the neighbor. I mean, yeah, but
Uh-huh.
it's the
Mhm.
way how it works today. But now we are going to have the artificial intelligence. So
Oh no.
I, I don't
Yeah.
know. There are still a lot of things that will
Yeah.
happen.
That's
That's the way it goes.
yeah, that's like a whole nother
Yeah.
that's like a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
The artificial intelligence is making music, is making books, is making paintings, maybe
what do
we
you
are
think
going to
about
disappear.
what do you think about that? What do you think about
I
this
didn't
idea?
even start thinking about it. I have I have too much things to do for the moment. I don't have time to think about
I mean, it's a lot. It is
that.
certainly a lot to think about. But you said something about like when you were speaking right now, you said something about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like bringing it back down to the local level or something.
Yeah.
And to me, that means like, trying to be more connected to your community and
Mhm.
your people. Is that what you meant?
Yes, yes. I
Hmm.
think it's
Hmm.
we don't have uh, a lot of needs.
Yeah.
It's the quality of what we need, which is important. Now, you
Mm.
can travel for, I don't know, let's say for $50, you take a kind of plane and you can visit the world all over the world. But I always say, you have people who are traveling because they think that when they will come back, they will be feel better. But you go it's yourself who is traveling. So you don't leave something at home and you come back and no, you are traveling there. So do you really need to travel? I mean, of course, maybe you want to see and visit, etc. But there are so much things to visit. You will never have, with one life, enough time to visit everything. So what does it mean to visit? What do you need to expect? You have it for food, you have it for culture, you have it for sports, you have it for family, for friends, etc. Do you need a community of 28,000 friends, or do you need one or two good friends? I mean, voila, it's about that. And I think it's coming a little bit back. I see younger people who are having family lives, but when you see today, because when we talk, we open a lot of doors of other conversations we should have.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, but when you see everything that happens today in the world for the younger people about gender, I mean, it's artificial intelligence, gender. There are so many questions, and it will always be different, and that's the way between generations. The things are different, and I don't think we have to compare. It's better or it's worse, or no. It's new. It's different, and therefore I think it's more important maybe to have this discussion about why do we say it's good or bad. No, I think it exists or it doesn't exist. If it exists, well, if you take examples and can take it in politics, people who are very, very, very important people, and you will say, how is it possible that this guy or this woman is that people voted for them? So the problem is not the person who is elected. The problem is more about the electors who give their voice to them. So everything is quite complicated, but I think you can be happy with a easy or a simple life, and it's not negative to say that things are simple. It doesn't need to be complicated. I mean, you don't need really quite a lot of things, but important. And I agree, everybody has his own way to feel happy and comfortable. Everybody can, but I don't think we need so much things. We need some.
Yeah.
There are some, because it's always about values. And what are the values today between what we received and we are going to leave for our children? Well, what about those values? I think there is an evolution in those values.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there is definitely an evolution in those values, and the only constant is change, right? So I think as we get older, I think it's almost a disservice.
You cannot talk about being older. You are too young.
Well, I'm not like a spring chicken, but
but not the autumn or
okay.
winter one. No, yeah.
Well, true, but I have lived multiple lives in my lifetime. No, but I think like from my point of view, I think it is a disservice to ourselves to think that the way of the past was better because X, Y, and Z, when the only constant is change, right? So I think it takes a lot of wisdom and peace within oneself to be accepting that things are not like how they were before, and things will constantly evolve. And perhaps I may feel a little different when artificial intelligence takes over the entire world, but as of right now, no, I'm just kidding. But like, I guess what I want to ask of you is like, what do you think made you like? I would consider you a very accepting person. What do you think along the way made you have this point of view?
I think it's not something that makes you. It's all about the same. I think it's something that you have inside. I think I have as idea that if you want something to be possible, so for instance, if you want to, when you make an artwork, a painting, you don't create anything. You never create something. If you wanted to make it, it must be possible to make it. So something has to exist before you make it. Otherwise, you cannot make it. So here is the same with the idea of course, you can have experiences that makes you change your mind or have another point of view or etc. etc. But the origin, the beginning of the thing is what you feel at that makes you how do you say that? You don't create something when you do something. You do something that you feel you have to do. I don't know if you understand what I mean.
I understand that. Yeah.
So that means that, of course, the experiences, etc., changes your point of view, but it doesn't change what you are. Meaning that, of course, you can change your mind and have other ideas. So you can say, yeah, I changed. No, the strongest feeling of being what you are doesn't change. If there is an evolution, there is not a revolution, but an evolution.
Yes, I understand.
You can improve, or but it's also, and we started the conversation with this. It's trying. If you want to make sense to the things that you do, you have to reach what you are inside, and that you know what you are, and so you have to be honest with yourself. And if you are honest with yourself, you might be happy whatever happens outside, because it's not the outside that decides 100% for yourself. It's more about you, who decides 100% about what you accept or not. Of course, if there is something very hard and happening in the world, of course, there are always reasons too. But in the beginning, I think it's more about, everything you do makes you closer or farther from yourself. So
yeah, well, that's kind of, no, I'm 100% agreeing with you, and that's kind of why I was giving that example of, we're talking about time, and I just threw out that, oh, this piece that you worked on took you 100 hours or something, and then how maybe someone else would use that 100 hours for Instagram or to waste their time away, right?
Yeah.
And I think and this isn't always going to be perfect. Sometimes, people need distractions and things like that. But I think the more that you can have confidence in yourself and what you actually want from your life, the more that you can make the decision to put your time towards that specific thing, whether that's writing or painting or whatever, right? And I think we really need to be, like you said, honest with how we want our life to play out. And I think to manifest anything, we have to be intentional about our decisions as much as humanly possible. Not saying that people are machines, right? It's like every single day of my life, I'm going to do this specific thing. Each day will be different, right? Depending on mood and stuff. But the overall encompassing mission, I think, it takes a lot of honesty to understand what that mission is in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think, once again, with the museum show, do you know what makes me so happy? Because we are talking about very young people, huh? Not like you and me, but very young people. There are so much young people coming to the museum. They are studying financial, engineers, art, etc. They are 18, 20, living in Berlin, in Lisbon, in Amsterdam, and they take 2-3 days just to come to Brussels to visit the museums. That's wonderful. I mean, the world you will always have people who are interested and who like it. And it made me change my mind about the youth, because I was also talking about why they are all on their iPhone. Of course, I make thousands of selfies with the people who are coming, but still, there are a lot of young people coming. I had last week 2 students who presented my work in their school to the teachers. They made interviews, pictures, etc. And they were 14 and 15, and they loved my work.
Wow.
So voila, I think we have an important message is to be very positive. We need to be positive and have positive messages for everybody, because the word, people say, yeah, but if you say something like that, look, you have a beautiful house, you have a studio, you have your work, yeah. And then I said, if you want me to tell me my story, you are going to cry quite a lot. So it doesn't make sense to say, look at what you have now or do today. Word is, and I started saying that more and more. I think life is beautiful. You have to do things that you need to do, and it doesn't have to be important things that everybody is going to talk about. It's just about try to be happy, and things can be very positive. And I see that with the museum. People are aware about, and they are so happy to see that, yes, it confirms that light and colors exist and gives energy, and they are driven, and they go out and they say, wow, I want to do a lot of things now. So yeah, let's do it.
Can I ask you a question about specifically what you just said about, like, your life story, and if people knew, like, people see the results, right? You're a successful artist, you have a house, you have a studio, blah blah blah, right? But I think, like, and let's say this is for someone out there that's going through a really hard time, right?
Yes.
And they might suffer from depression, or they're just going through a really hard moment in their life. What would you tell that person based off of your experiences, but also, and also, like, during your hardest times, like, what would you say to yourself that pulled you out of that? Because you did have to make a decision to say, like, life is beautiful and life is not as terrible as I might think at this moment.
I think that everybody can have his own difficulties. And if I look back to my story, I would say, I think you need help when because you cannot resolve all the problems by yourself, because the story you are in is made by a lot of things that starts by things coming from outside. At the end, you must try to be aware that you can change things. And therefore, I think you need the right people to take you out of what you are thinking or doing, because what you are thinking and doing the responsibility cannot be put on the shoulders of others, whether it are parents, friends, bosses, or whatever. I think you can find a solution for your own problem. Solutions exist. You can never say there is no solution. There is also a solution. There always a solution. We talked about that in nature. We talked about human beings, about the cells, cancer. There's always a solution. Of course, you have to maybe go through hard moments and things, but if you arrive to be aware of that there is a solution, and then you approach the solution, I think it will really bring you a lot of happiness, because you will say, wow, I think there is a culture, I think it's Chinese, that say that it's not the way which is difficult, it's the difficulty which is the way, you know. So, and I think it's a positive way of see negative things, and I think that's the way it goes. I believe now, even if I had hard times, but voilà, it's more about hard times where I now understand that everybody has his own story that makes him behave on a certain way. So that means if you put it on a positive way, that you have the right to do it on your own way. You never are condemned to do it as people or someone or some things told you you have to do to correspond. Try to be what you think that you are. And this is the right exercise or the right things that have to try to be done in a life. It's voilà. Of course, if you are in there are countries or places where it's really hard, and people who, when I say I had a hard time, it's nothing compared to people who really had really, really, really bad times. It's more, it's not physically for me, it's more about psychologically, you know?
Yeah.
It's just about, I felt I was someone and everything around me, I thought that they didn't want. Now I say I thought. Before I was saying they don't or they didn't want me. No, it's not right. It's just because all the other peoples, the outside is doing it, everybody on its own way. So it just telling maybe why do I put 100% of my problems on the shoulders of the others? Maybe I'm also responsible. And then it starts, and then you can find that you are maybe a good person and you can do the things right. You just need to do that. But when you do it by yourself, you don't need to voilà. You accomplished your alone. You don't have to thanks, I don't know, thousands of people. You're just happy for yourself because you made it. And if you succeed, you are happy because you made it. If you don't succeed, it's because of you. It's not because of the others.
Yeah. No, I think it's I mean, I think it's really important to state that and to be able to take responsibility for our actions and our thoughts, and also know that, you know, something out there that I would probably tell to a younger person than me, someone who's probably going through some difficult problems and issues with their life, is that, you know, this moment will pass, and it's just a moment, you know, or perhaps it's just a season, a season of difficulty, and that you have the power to be able to change your life, you know, and I think it's good to take responsibility over those decisions. Otherwise, you'll just think you're a victim of everything.
Yes,
you know.
I think I totally agree when you say, because I had that. It started like that for me too, to say, Johan, listen, try to imagine where you will be in 6 months, and change. Things will have been changed. So maybe in a much better way. So as you say, yeah, it's a moment. It's a difficult moment. But of course, I don't want people to misunderstand. There are people who are really going through very, 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 very hard things. So I'm not talking about that, because I didn't have that. Even if it was, I consider it was very, very hard at that time. But still, I think it's the more I go, the more I think we can be positive, and it's important to have positive messages, because we are surrounded by negative news, negative approach, negative things. And that's not, it cannot be only this way. There's also quite a lot of positive things around us. And I think it's important to say and to tell people that it exists. You don't have to go very far to find that. You just have to go inside of yourself first, and then you can go local, and then you can go further, and then etc. But solution, we have to, because I wish everybody can be happy. In fact, it's just about all about that, to be happy. And everybody has his own way to be happy, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that everybody knows if he is really happy or not. You know, that's the most important, you know.
Yeah. If one is honest with themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of people out there that say like, "Oh, I'm totally happy," but actually that's just something they tell other people. And you know, I think
I see that with, as I am 64 in a few weeks, I have a lot of
happy
friends of
birthday
my age
coming up.
coming. But I
Coming.
have a lot of friends who are going to be retired, and they start saying, what I am going to do now? And you say, wow, how is that possible? I mean, because you were told, and those people were looking very happy by doing things, their job, etc. And then suddenly, when this stops, they don't even know what they will be able to do. I mean, and this is terrible. I mean, I don't think that you can be happy if you don't know what sense you are going to give to your life. I mean, everything is about sense, not about doing or having or no. You are happy if what you are and doing makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's important. It's very important.
I agree. I agree with that. And
but you are not going to be retired in the coming year, and so you have time to think about it. So
I have time. I have a good amount of time. I think I have a good amount of time. But Johan, I really want to thank you for taking this moment and doing this interview. And for the listeners out there, Johan and I are going to be doing a second part to this interview right now, which consists of him talking about videos and photos of the exhibit. So everyone should check that on YouTube. But Johan, I appreciate you. Seriously, like I can't wait to go out to Belgium eventually and be able to see you and hang out.
We share a lot of conversation. We do some boxing.
I know, that's what I was thinking too. We can do some boxing.
We do some paintings and some drinking and etc.
Yeah.
Be happy together. So,
painting and drinking.
Yeah. Oh, really, thank you for inviting me each time to have those talks, because it's very interesting for me too, to be able to share ideas and thank you very much.
Music for the podcast is by Rarebit, aka Justin Dosher Hopkins. YouTube and creative support is by Tyler Scully. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next time.